In studio all the time. We joke that he picks up his mail here at the Big 550 KTRS. Senator Roy Blunt, you are in town for a number of things, but right before we went on the air, you just admitted you're a huge fan of To Kill a Mockingbird.
Well, I am. It's one of my favorite books, one of my favorite movies, and I'm not absolutely sure whether I'm going to read the new book or not. I suspect I'll not be able to resist doing that. But,
right.
Did you, when you looked at it, was there a reason that that they rejected it the first time?
It was her first version, and her editor said, I loved you looking back at your childhood. Write it from the perspective not as an older woman coming back, but a younger woman back in the 40s.
Right.
And so she took 2 years to rework it and then write it from the other way.
Yeah. I think the two child actors in that movie, I think that was the only movie they were ever in.
I think you're right, yeah.
Which is pretty astounding because such a great piece of work.
Yeah.
And
that is a good point when you say that. I'm not sure if I want to read this.
That's a lot of people. A lot of people
Exactly.
are thinking that.
Exactly.
You're in town. You're going to be at Cochrane here later today.
Well,
What's going on there?
Actually, I'm going to go to the Women's Veterans Clinic, very close to the Cochrane facility. I've been very concerned about how the VA just continues to seem to get worse and worse instead of better and better. There are 50% more people now waiting for an appointment for more than 30 days than there were a year ago. And I thought this new guy's job was to come in and clean this up, not to have it continue to get worse. We've now had 7 interim directors at Cochrane over 2 years. And it does make you wonder just how serious the VA is about veterans as opposed to the Veterans Administration. I'd like to see the VA get focused on what's best for veterans rather than what's best for the Veterans Administration. And frankly, I think that may very well be more choices for veterans to go other places if they're not getting the kind of care they need in the system.
You've sort of mentioned this before, and the veteran system is set up for veterans, and it's a great idea, but would they just not be better off going back into the general population and getting some type of government-sponsored or government-paid-for health insurance to go see quote-unquote regular doctors?
Whether you could get that done immediately or not, I don't know, but I'd like to see them have more of those choices to do that. There are some things that the VA should be better at than anybody else. They should be better at post-traumatic stress. And by the way, it's not post-traumatic stress disorder. This is a real problem that people have, and it's not I don't like that disorder term, but they should be better at post-traumatic stress. They should be better at all the kinds of accidents, eye and other, that come from IEDs. Mm-hmm. They should be better at prosthetics for the same reason. After that, I'm not sure what they really should be better at. Clearly, there are better places to get your heart stent put in, or to have your blood pressure checked, or to have your renal cancer worked on. Why do we want to continue to focus on this system that's not doing anything very well instead of try to figure out how it could do what it is best at really well and give veterans more choices?
Yeah. Iran we're rumored to be cutting some type of deal. John Kerry might be in the last moments of actually announcing a deal with Iran. Former colleague of yours, what do you think as you sit and you watch this story?
Well, I think it looks like to me that everything we have said were our negotiating points, we've been willing to negotiate away. I'd like to find out if there is an agreement that I'm really wrong, that we did get unlimited inspections, we did get the understanding of the history of what research they'd done. We did get the closing down of their facilities that can enrich material, and we prevented them from being nuclear weapons capable. That's what we said we were going to do 2 years ago. Those were the 4 goals. It certainly begins to sound like that not only are we not going to get those goals, but we're also going to wind up giving them back way sooner than we could the money that's been held back and relieve the sanctions to a country that still is doing more to finance terrorism around the world than any other country. I think Kelly, and I think it's a disaster.
You think about Iran, we're fighting with them against ISIS and against them with Syria. So it's this weird world where depends on what office you're walking into is who you're fighting for and or fighting against and or fighting with.
Well, I think that's an indication of just how confused the foreign policy the country's gotten. Our friends don't trust us. Our enemies aren't afraid of us. We've got Yemen that the president said about 10 months ago was the best example of how our policy was working. Within 6 months of saying that, we're evacuating everybody out of Yemen because it's totally collapsed. And one of the big reasons that the Yemen totally collapsed was the constant effort of Iran there and in Iraq and in Syria and in a couple of other places to want to constantly disrupt whatever is a stable order of things.
So
And
you're
ISIS is becoming more and more of a threat, daily, and becoming more and more frightening. I mean, what do you think should be done with that?
Well, I'm not sure daily in terms of frightening. From working on the Intel Committee, the Senate Intelligence Committee, and before that, a couple of different tours on the House Intelligence Committee, where we meet every week with people from the CIA, people from the FBI, the National Defense Intelligence Agency people, the people that are fighting the cyber war, and there are more potential attacks coming from more places than ever before. And and I can say that, but also General Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, people like George Shultz and Henry Kissinger, who've been watching this a long time, say that. And of course, the difference in what I'm seeing, what they're seeing, is I get to see it from the inside. And I think clearly before the 4th of July, the FBI particularly stepped up and in the month of June arrested a number of people, shut down a number of things that they'd been watching that were all sort of targeted, we believed, toward major celebrations in the country, the 4th of July. But individuals whose minds are poisoned on the internet, to efforts that are funded by foreign powers, to frankly the potential, McGraw and Kelly, that our infrastructure can be infiltrated by the same kind of people who took all those government records for 22 million people with a cyber attack.
Senator Roy Blunt, you want to stick around, freshen up your coffee?
Yes, I would stay for a few minutes.
There you go. Traffic weather, more with Senator Roy Blunt in a moment. Big 550.